Welcome and thank you for joining me today. We are going to be making a beach sign. This is just an idea I came up with. I saw these little boards at the dollar store a little while ago, and I picked up some, and I thought, yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I grabbed them, and I thought, who knows what I'll come up with. So this is one idea that I've come up with. So all I'm doing is I'm taking some paint and I poured it right onto the board itself, and I started painting. As you can see, I kind of got a little carried away with the amount of paint. I had too much, so I just had to wipe some of it off. Start with a little bit and just keep adding more as you need it. I do recommend that you paint the sides and the bottom and the top of each of the little panel, just to keep everything kind of cohesive and all together. I did not paint the connecting boards in behind, nor did I paint the backs of the boards. I just painted the front, the sides, and all the sides. You can do this whatever colors you want. Totally up to you. I just thought that the colors that I've chosen were kind of, beachy, made me think of the beach weather and all that. So have fun painting your sign. I will not be talking through all of this. I will fast forward this, just so that you don't have to, so it doesn't take quite as long, but enjoy this, and I will jump back on here in a little bit and explain more of the process. Alright, so now that we've got them all painted, we can start doing adding the words. I have a Cricut, so I printed out these words that I'm going to apply onto the sign using my Cricut. I used removable vinyl. I just find that with the removable vinyl, it gives you a good stick, so it attaches good to the wood, but it doesn't stick so much that it pulls the paint up when you take it off. So that's what I did. If you don't have a cutting machine, a Silhouette or a Cricut or whatnot, you can definitely still do this process. You could go and purchase some stickers and write your words out that way. So in that case, it would kind of be like a reverse of what I'm doing. Excuse me. What I'm doing is I have made my stencils and I've taken the actual words out and I'm going to paint inside of those letters. If you were to use stickers, you would put the stickers down and then you would paint around. So your background color would show through and you'd have a new color in the surrounding area. But it's definitely doable. So don't think you can't do this if you don't have a cutting machine. So I put transfer tape on my vinyl and I'm just removing that transfer tape right now, which will leave the stencil on the wood. And as you can see, it is kind of giving me a little bit of grief just because it is removable vinyl and it's on a painted surface. Removable vinyl is good for like windows, mirrors, that type thing, because as you would get from the name, you can remove it and it doesn't leave a residue behind. That's the other reason I like using this on this type of project, is because when you pull the stencil up, it does not leave a gluey residue on the wood. So now when you are doing this, the inside of the letters are always going to give you a little bit of grief. They always want to come up. It doesn't seem to matter what you do. So just take your time, go slow. If you kind of rock it back, if you rock the transfer tape back and forth a little bit, it does help to kind of pull it off without pulling the vinyl off with it. So, but this is all I'm going to do. So I have 4 different words for each of the 4 wood panels, and we'll just get that applied on there and go from there. So I just wanted to pop on here real quick and just say that the vinyl that I'm using is actually from the dollar store. This is the first time I'm using it. They have the removable vinyl as well as the permanent vinyl. And I was also able to get some of the transfer paper, or the transfer sheet, sorry. So I'm thinking that this vinyl is okay. Like, there's not a whole bunch in the package, but if you just needed to do a quick little project, by all means. The nice thing about this too is that even if you don't have a cutting machine, you could cut shapes out on these and cut them out by hand and then use them on this type of products or project. So yeah, have a look at the different dollar stores and see if they carry the permanent and the removable vinyl. You never know. I just wanted to point out here that when you are placing your vinyl down onto the wood, in this case, you really want to push that vinyl down into the wood to make sure it has a really good stick. And afterwards, once I get the transfer tape off, you'll notice that I do go over it with the little burnishing tool again, as well as with my finger, to make sure that the vinyl is stuck down to the wood, especially where we're going to put the paint, so around each of the letters. So that little tool I'm using is it's something that comes with the different cutting machines. There's all different kinds of them. But if you don't have a little tool like that, you can use like a credit card or a debit card or a gift card, anything that's going to allow you to put pressure on that vinyl and push it right down into the wood. So you don't need to go out and buy all the tools for that if you don't have a Cricut or a cutting machine or whatnot. So I just wanted to point that out. Alright, so now that we've got the vinyl applied onto the wood, we can now start with the next process, which is applying the paint on the words themselves, onto the letters. So as you see here, I grab my white paint and my little dauber brush, and I'm going to start painting. However, I forgot a really important part. If I were to just put the paint on without applying Mod Podge, more than likely it's going to bleed underneath the vinyl. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of Mod Podge, you don't need a whole bunch, and I'm just going to put a thin coat of Mod Podge all over the words. What that does is it creates like a barrier between the vinyl and the painted background, and it kind of seals it off so that the white paint that we're going to put on top to cover the letters will not bleed through. And you don't have to, you just give it a few seconds to kind of get tacky. So by the time I'm done painting the 4 boards, I can start painting the white back up on the top now. And again, you just need a thin coat. You'll see that some areas I got a little thick, and I just kind of shared that around, made sure that I got all the letters totally covered, and made just to ensure that the paint's not going to bleed through. Now this part here, I am using, like I said, this little foam dauber kind of a brush. I do recommend that over a paintbrush for a couple reasons. When you use this foam brush to apply the paint, you use up and down motions, which puts the paint into the holes where the letters are, but it doesn't push the paint underneath. So although we did use the Mod Podge, that will definitely help, but if you were to use a paintbrush and you use back and forth motions, there's a chance that you could still push the paint underneath the vinyl and therefore getting bleeding to happen. So that's why I use the foam brush. I'm using the up and down motion. It really helps to make sure that you get clean lines when you go to pull the vinyl off. Alright, now that all the paint has been put on, I'm just going to let this dry. Once the paint has dried, I will go back through and put another thin layer of paint over top just to make sure that I didn't miss any spots. And plus then that way it kind of gives your paint a little thicker base, so you're not going to see the other color in behind. Alright, so now that the second coat has been applied, we need to let it dry. So I'm kind of impatient, so I'm going to use my heat gun. It just produces some heat and allows the paint to dry a bit quicker and allows you to get back working on the project that much faster. This is not something that you need at all. If you don't have a heat gun, you can just be patient and wait, or you could even use your blow dryer. But I did have the heat gun, so I'm just going to use that and just run it back and forth over top of the paint and let it dry, and then we can move on to the next step. Alright, so our paint is all dry. Now we can start removing the vinyl from the wood. So be gentle as you're doing this. Just start on one corner and gently pull, and hopefully you'll have some nice crisp lines for your words and you won't have any bleeding. Again, I was using the removable vinyl, so it made this part of the process really easy because it doesn't have a huge amount of glue on it, so I was able to pull it off with virtually no problems at all. That tool I have there is just part of my excuse me, one of the tools that I got when I got my Cricut, and it's just like a little, I don't know, it's kind of not a dental tool, but that's what it kind of reminds me of. Anyways, it just helps you to get in the crevices and in the small parts to get the rest of the vinyl out. One thing I wanted to mention is whatever it is you're using to pull out those little pieces, especially like in the bee there, those inside pieces, be careful that you don't poke down too much and too far that you're pulling up the paint underneath. So just kind of poke at it gently until you start getting a little piece come up, and then grab it and just pull it out of there. Alright, so our little sign has all been painted and everything all weeded out and everything. So now I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper. Again, I got this at the dollar store, and I'm just going to go around the edges and kind of in the middle a little bit, more so around the edges, just to kind of let some of that wood show through, just to give it a little bit more dimension so it's not such hard edges, I guess, just to kind of soften it up a bit. And I'm just going to do that on each of the 4 pieces. there you go, our little beach sign is all done. I will let this sit overnight, and then tomorrow I will take it outside and give it a coat of varathane, just a protective coating on it so that the paint and the wood doesn't get wrecked if it got wet. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you make some. Share over on my page, Krista So Crafty, and happy crafting!